In a mysterious magical world full of secrets and mysteries, every 60 years, a legendary ritual is repeated to choose the new princess who will rule this world instead of the current princess, Kokyuri, who has ruled for years with justice and magic. When this ritual comes, the 12 Shinsho, who have sworn eternal loyalty, not to just anyone, but to Princess Kokyuri herself, who always stands on the front lines to protect the world from collapse, step in. These Shinsho are not ordinary people. They are masters of power, skill, and loyalty. Their sole mission is to find the next princess before Kokuri's time runs out and she falls into a deep slumber, which is only 3 days away. But far from magic and these realms, in another world much like ours, lives a boy named Arita, an ordinary, shy, quiet teenager who hates crowds and avoids people. He wakes up, tidies his room, and gets dressed quickly to catch his new school. His sister enters and tells him breakfast is ready and nags him a bit, while he greets his mom and rushes out the door. His sister looks at him with worry and wishes him a good day, seeing that he's still alone. His mom reassures her, saying not to worry. He's found a friend to share his day and change the painful past that broke his heart. As Arita walks to school among the crowd of students, his head is down, unable to face anyone, until his friend Tsurujo shows up and makes his face light up. Arita relaxes and starts laughing with him, gives him a new game, and Tsurujo gets excited and they head to school together. At school, Arita joins a running race and discovers he's incredibly fast, breaking a record. The coach calls him over and offers him a place on the team, but Arita refuses because he doesn't like those things, and the coach respects his wish. But things won't stay rosy for long. A boy looks at him from the window with fiery, jealous eyes. When Arita climbs the stairs, the boy meets him and talks to him harshly as if he's an enemy, not a classmate. Arita is hurt by his words as if they were stabs. Then he overhears Tsurujo, his supposed friend, talking behind his back, saying Arita is not his friend and that he's embarrassed by him. Arita feels betrayed and realizes people are all the same, that he was wrong to trust anyone. Then, back again to the world of magic and rituals, but this time with another character with the same name, Arita. But this one is totally different. A mischievous boy running from his grandmother, who keeps scolding and warning him until she loses her temper and casts a paralyzing spell on him. As he dodges the spell, he falls and gets hurt, realizing she's not joking. He calms down and sits with her, and she tells him about the tribe's fate, that he must disguise himself as a girl and act as the new princess because their tribe hasn't had any girls in 30 years. Arita refuses the idea completely and shouts, saying, "I'm a man and I'll stay that way." His grandmother gets fed up and says she was wrong to consider him a man and should have raised him as a girl. Arita boils with anger and says, "Even if I go along with your plan, if they find out, they'll kill me." She replies, "They'll kill all of us if we don't send a girl." He begins to think and feels the responsibility, deciding to sacrifice himself to protect his tribe, which is protected by the sword of Hayagami. If that sword breaks, the whole world will turn into fire and ruin. He picks up the sword hanging on the wall and plays with it in front of his grandmother, who freaks out and panics, while he deliberately teases her, tossing it from one hand to another. She collapses to the ground from the shock, because that is the actual Hayagami sword. Arita feels guilty and decides to go to the tent with Katuha, the girl who will prepare him to look like a girl and travel as a fake princess until his grandmother finds a real replacement in 3 days. Katuha gives him a magic necklace from her days serving Princess Kokyuri and tells him to be careful, and they head together to the grand reception ceremony. On the way, he whispers to her to return to the tribe and make the people leave the area in case he gets exposed, so they'll be safe. The ritual begins, and Arita bows to Princess Kokyuri, but inside he's in turmoil, unable to keep up the lie, yet forced to continue. Suddenly, Kanagi, one of the Shinsho, emerges and kills the princess instantly. Arita screams in his manly voice, and Kanagi realizes he's a boy, not a girl, and says, "I was going to kill you anyway, boy or girl." Kokyuri tries to protect herself and, with her remaining strength, creates a barrier to guard her worn-out soul. Arita calls out to the other Shinsho, but none of them move. It's as if they were all in on it. Kanagi announces the 12 Shinsho's rebellion against Kokuri's rule. Arita realizes the betrayal and flees the scene. Kanagi chases after him and announces to the people that the new princess is a fraud, a boy named Arita who tried to deceive them and is the one who killed the princess. The people believe it, and the news spreads like wildfire. Arita runs into the cursed forest, Kando Forest, full of legends. As soon as he enters, something strange happens. His body floats, and he sees the entire world from above. Suddenly, the other Arita from the human world appears before him, and everything switches. The two Aritas swap places. Arita from the human world ends up in the magical world, while the other disappears, his whereabouts unknown. Arita from the human world finds himself in the forest, panics, and tries to leave, but as soon as he steps out, the Shinsho are waiting and fire arrows at him. He rushes back into the forest, and they hesitate to enter. Luckily, Katuha enters and finds him, takes him back to the tribe, and tells the grandmother that her grandson lost his memory. But he tells them, "I'm not the person you're talking about." The grandmother is puzzled and notices something is definitely off. She connects it to the forest and confirms that the souls have switched. Erida asks if there's a way back to his world, and she tells him there isn't. The boy gets angry and says he doesn't want to live here as a traitor and killer. The grandmother believes her real grandson could never do such a thing and tells him Erida didn't kill the princess. Something is wrong. Then comes the moment of confrontation. The Shinsho arrive and threaten the grandmother, demanding Erida. Katuha is tied up and threatened, but Erida steps in and says, "I'm the Erida you're looking for." When he realizes they'll kill him, he grabs the Hayagami sword from the wall, and as soon as he does, the sword glows with light. The Shinsho are shocked and say that this sword only responds to the chosen one. The grandmother tells him the secret word, and as soon as he says it, a magical shield emerges from the sword around him, protecting him from any attack. And Kanagi, as he saw the energy coming out of the sword, his eyes widened in disbelief, and he kept thinking and thinking. After a moment, he fell silent and went to put the sword back in its place, as if trying to understand. How did that sword choose Erida? That's not normal. But just as he returned the sword, the house they were in collapsed on top of them. The house literally fell from the power of the sword. So the soldiers didn't wait. They grabbed Kanagi and ran out to check on him. He's an important person, after all. Back to the human world, Arata's mom and sister were just out together, just a normal day. But his mom suddenly stopped and asked why he was late. She called him. Did he answer? Of course not. Was the signal bad? Still no. Maybe the phone battery died? His sister told her, "Mom, calm down. Maybe the phone just ran out of charge." But his mom had warned him a million times to take care of his phone. Then she said, "But he's grown up and knows what he's doing. I'm sure he's fine." Seconds later, they heard people saying there's a boy wearing strange clothes and he's very handsome. He must be an actor. Arata's mom got more excited than the kids and ran through the crowd to see the actor. But when she got close, she was shocked. It was her son, Erida. At that moment, we returned to the magical world. The grandmother managed to escape with Erida and Katuha to a safe place. There, she began explaining the sword to him. She told him that the sword he had wasn't just any sword. It was a legendary sword once owned by great kings. The sword doesn't choose randomly. When it chooses someone, that person becomes the show who will change the world. And the one who attacked them in the house also had a magical sword, one of the swords of the great kings. That means the man wasn't ordinary at all. That's why he was shocked Erida could block his attack. Meanwhile, Katuha was busy preparing food. She told Erida, "This is your favorite meal. Maybe when you eat it, your memories will come back." Her face full of hope that he's the same Erida she considers like a brother, but she still couldn't believe the real Erida had disappeared. Erida, for his part, left the place burdened with worry, not knowing what to do. At the same time, Kanagi was sitting alone too, his head full of questions, unable to believe what had happened. Suddenly, Akashi, one of the Shinsho, appeared to him and said, "The plan has changed. Keep him alive. He'll be judged in front of the people." And Erida, for the first time, admitted, "I wasn't miserable. I want to go back to school, make new friends, and talk to the friends who pushed me away." But then Katuha came with the food and told him to eat. He replied, "I'm not Erida. My memories didn't get lost in the forest." But when she noticed he wasn't wearing the necklace she gave him, she was shocked and told him, "That necklace was precious. It came from the princess herself." He thought she'd finally understand, but she surprised him and gave him another one. At that point, Erida gave up and just went along with her. At that moment, the grandmother heard a strange sound coming from the cave. She went to check. She saw some unclear figures. It wasn't obvious if they were soldiers or creatures, holding torches and walking slowly and eerily on the hill. And suddenly, Kanagi appeared from behind Erida like a ghost and told him, "If you don't come with us quietly, I'll finish off your grandmother right now." Erida flinched and tried to grab the sword to surprise him like before, but the grandmother shook her head and told him not to do it. So Erida had to surrender and gave himself up. Kanagi tied him up and threw him into the carriage like a criminal and told him, "Get ready, tomorrow you'll be judged in front of everyone." And Erida screamed, "I didn't do it. I didn't kill the princess." But Kanagi shamelessly replied, "You don't remember, but I'll remind you. You killed her and ran, and you'll pay for your crime." He ordered the carriage to move, and Erida fell from the shaking. At that moment, the necklace around his neck struck something and emitted a strange glow and opened a portal, a supernatural portal that connected him to his original world. Suddenly, he saw himself in his house, and the other Erita from the magical world saw him too. Both of them could see and hear each other, but there was a barrier between them as if they were in parallel worlds. The imprisoned Erita got angry and shouted, "Did you kill the princess?" The Erita in the human world replied, "Me? No, the one who betrayed the princess and killed her was Kannagi. Believe me." The imprisoned Erita said, "I want to go back. I want to return to school and my old life." The other Erita reassured him, "Don't worry, I'll try to figure something out. Just take care of yourself and watch out for Kannagi." And each of them regained hope of returning to their world. But the portal began to fade and the connection between them was cut off the moment Arata's mom knocked on the door, and we returned to the magical world. The court was on fire, and Erita stood before Kannagi, the official accuser in the princess's case. Kannagi showed the people an image of the princess surrounded by magic, and said her life was safe until Erita came. Everyone went crazy, shouting against him and demanding his execution. Erita tried to defend himself and told them, "Don't believe it. The ones who did it were Kannagi and the Shinsho. They betrayed her." But suddenly, one of the Shinsho raised his weapon in Arata's face and shouted, "How dare you accuse us? We served the princess all our lives. Our loyalty to her has no limits." The people's rage grew even more against Erita. Then Kannagi announced the verdict. Erita was to be exiled to Gatoya, the final hell. They took him to the ship, and Kannagi stood watching the ship fly away and said, "I still can't kill him, not until I know what type of sword he has." Inside the ship, a guard entered to Erita with Katuha. He said, "She'll be imprisoned with you as punishment for sneaking in without permission." Katuha was very happy and told Erita, "I won't leave you. I'll always stay by your side." She pulled out his magical sword and told him, "Come on, use it so we can get out of here." Erita tried and said the word his grandmother taught him, but the sword did nothing. Erita got frustrated, gave up, and threw the sword aside, but in that moment, he heard a voice calling him. The necklace around his neck lit up. Suddenly, his soul and Katuha's soul were transported to a strange place, and the princess herself appeared before them. She tells Erita that she now sees him as one of the Shinsho, one of the loyal ones to her, after what he said. Then she continues and tells him that the power of the sword in his hands has become a huge threat if it falls into the hands of someone evil, especially now that its energy has been released. If that happens, the entire world will be distorted and destroyed, and they'll never be able to control it again. That's why she wants him to be the one who rules after her, the one to control all that power through the sword, because he's the only one she can trust. And as soon as she finishes speaking, the connection breaks, and Erita returns to the ship, sitting next to Katuha, terrified by what he just heard, unsure of himself or anyone else around him. But Katuha calms him down and tells him she believes in him and that he's the one who can carry this responsibility, not only to rule after the princess, but also to fulfill her request. And to make that happen, they must hide the sword, because if he walks around with it while being watched by the Shinsho, it will be very dangerous. Then she surprises him. She grabs the sword and stabs it into his hand. Erita is shocked. He screams and panics, but she reassures him and says the pain is only an illusion, not real. The sword will just merge into him, and whenever he wants to summon it, he can do it easily. And indeed, the sword disappears inside him. Amazed, he tries pulling it out and storing it again, taking it out and putting it back multiple times until he gets bored. Katuha looks out the window and tells him they're about to reach the island. Erita gets up, looks, and spots the island. It looks very gloomy, dark, and frightening. Everything about it screams, "Run away." The moment they enter, he starts hearing strange voices, imagining things, but he tries to ignore it and not tell anyone. He walks with Katuha for a while until he sees a group of prisoners who look terrifying. Eyes lifeless, bodies rugged. The whole scene is unnatural. He gets scared for Katuha and tells her not to move from his side. As they walk through the crowd, all the eyes are on him, full of hatred. They all see him as the one who killed the princess, as worse than any of them, but they can't do anything because they're unable to move from their spots. Suddenly, two boys who look a bit different stop in front of him and tell him to take off his scarf and clothes and hand over anything valuable, or they'll cause him real trouble. Erita refuses and says, "I'll never do that." So they threaten him and say, "Fine, your choice, but what'll happen to you? You'll regret it." One of them pulls out a spear and attacks him. Erita doesn't have any weapon. He tries to dodge the strikes, backing away, but the boy is skilled and knows how to use the spear well. He wounds Arata's hand. Erita gets nervous, trips, and falls to the ground. He tries to get up and fight back, but the boy suddenly stops his attack when he hears a voice say, "It's time for Judgment Hour, run." Erita stands still, confused. What's Judgment Hour? Everyone runs, fleeing and disappearing suddenly. Only a few remain, too late to escape, and they find themselves surrounded by huge pipes that rise from the ground and suck them inside, killing them in horrific ways. Erita and Katuha stand frozen, unable to believe what's happening. It's like a nightmare. Monsters literally devouring people people from under the earth. At that moment, a girl appears and tells them this is called the Judgment Hour, a rule in the prison. The warden picks 2 or 3 people every now and then to be killed in this terrifying way. As they try to make sense of what she said, the girl steals a valuable accessory from Katuha and walks away, saying, "That's the price for the info I gave," and leaves without waiting for a response. As for Kanagi, he's still lost in thought. Akashi walks in and asks him, "Why did you exile Erita to Gatoya?" He replies that there's something really bothering him and he needs to confirm it about Erita. Once he's sure, he'll do what they agreed on. Akashi trusts him and tells him, "Just don't act rashly or selfishly," and Kanagi reassures him. Akashi leaves without saying much more. Meanwhile, Erita is sitting in a corner, thinking about the sword. He pulls it out from his hand and tries saying the magic word again, hoping the sword will activate, but nothing happens. Katuha comes and tells him she found a place he'd really like. He goes with her and finds a place filled with hot water. He soaks in it and relaxes his muscles. She notices his hand is injured, so with her magic, she heals him. After a while of rest, he gets out and feels he has to live up to the trust, especially after Katuha practically risked her life to come with him. He needs to take care of her. She's the only one truly by his side and believes in his strength. Just as he's about to thank her, they hear the sound of the Judgment Hour again, but this time, the ground shakes beneath them and splits open, and Katuha falls into it. He can't catch her in time, so he rushes down to the place she fell and tries asking the prisoners, describing Katuha to them, but no one responds or helps him in any way. On top of that, a group of shady-looking people whisper among themselves the moment they see him, saying that if they cut off his head and give it to the prison warden, they'll be released. This rumor spreads around quickly. They chase after him, but he's fast and hides in a place where they can't find him. At that point, he sits down sad, unable to move because of his leg, tired from running, and afraid he won't find Katuha. Then he hears a voice taking form as a black figure that speaks to him, asking, "Why are you crying?" He asks it if it knows where Katuha is, but the spirit ignores his question entirely and says, "You're the show that the sword chose. Will you live up to the responsibility and save the people who believed in you, or will you betray them?" He doesn't know how to answer, and the conversation between them ends because the girl who had told him about the Judgment Hour appears again. She tells him her name is Asuma and she can help him find the missing person. She knows a lot about this place. He thanks her and gives her his bag as payment for the information she'll give. But she tells him info is free and doesn't take anything. Then she says, "The boy who attacked you, he and his brother are the ones who took Katuha. But be careful, he's very fast and dangerous. His name, by the way, is Kanthi." Erita thanks her and hurries off to look for Katuha. Katuha, at that moment, is with Kanthi and his brother Genshur, thanking them for saving her when she fell. They treat her very kindly. She asks about Erita, but they don't answer and change the subject. Meanwhile, Erita arrives at their location after asking around, but he runs into Genshur on the way. Kanthi steps out to check why his brother is late and finds him on the ground, with Erita beside him. He thinks Erita attacked his brother, gets furious, and charges at him. But Erita explains that it was a misunderstanding. He didn't do anything to Genshur. Then a thief appears and says, "I did it." Erita quickly strikes him down and defeats him, saving the brothers. Kanthi thanks him and goes to the gang's place to retrieve his brother's stolen ring, while Genshur goes with Erita to Katuha so she can treat him. Afterward, they meet up with Kanthi again after he got the ring back. But then the Judgment Hour starts again, and this time, the chosen ones are Kanthi and Erita. But when Kanthi gets swallowed, Genshur can't take it. He pushes Erita aside and jumps in after his brother, and the judgment ends. Erita, from what happened, collapses, unable to believe his eyes. The shock paralyzes him, and the pain in his heart deepens because, for the second time, he sees something happen right in front of him and he's helpless. Nothing he can do. Fear had tied his legs. But this time, it's different. He decides not to run. He decides to stand and take real action, to help the people who can still be saved, the ones his heart feels are still alive. The pipes he saw looked strange and led to another place. Maybe there's hope there. So he takes a deep breath and tells himself, "I have to go after them." And Katuha, as always, won't leave him. She goes with him without thinking. The two of them enter one of the strange pipes and start walking through it cautiously. Katuha tells him, "Be careful. The one in charge of this prison isn't ordinary. He's one of the show, a true monster. Anyone who stands against him doesn't leave unharmed." At that moment, moment, Kanthi is tied up and hanging in the air. His mind takes him back to the first time he met Gensher. They weren't siblings by blood, but they were like brothers and got deeply attached, loved each other so much that no one could separate them. Suddenly, Kanthi returns to reality and finds himself still tied up, with Gensher in front of him trying to help, but it's no use. Then he hears the prison warden's voice, calling him stupid and saying he'll be judged immediately. Meanwhile, on the other side, Arata's pipe leads him to a strange place filled with many openings. He stands there confused, not knowing which way to go. He looks at Katuha to see if she knows anything, but she's just as lost. Suddenly, the ground shakes beneath him and he falls, but he catches the edge tightly. Out of nowhere, Asuma, the girl who knows everything, appears and asks, "What are you doing here?" He tells her, "I'm looking for the prison warden. Kanthi and Gensher are there." She says, "You're crazy. This isn't a normal mission. It's suicide." He says, "I have to go and save my friends." She senses his courage, returns what she stole from Katuha, thanks him, and he continues his path with determination. At the same time, Kanthi and Gensher are being pulled tighter by the ropes. Their hands get wounded, their necks choked. Kanthi asks to see the warden so they can both get out. But the shock is that the warden tells him, "If you want to leave, you have to fight your brother. Whoever wins goes free. Whoever refuses to fight, both die." They're dropped to the ground, and the warden throws them weapons. Kanthi picks his up and says, "We have to fight. At least one of us can get out." And the fight begins. But Gensher can't strike him. He can't hurt his brother. Kanthi attacks him while Gensher steps back, refusing to fight. Suddenly, Arata arrives and sees what's happening. He tries to stop the warden, but the warden attacks him using the pipes spread everywhere. Arata yells at him, "You're insane. Gensher and Kanthi aren't criminals. You've wronged them." But the warden laughs and says, "Everyone here is the same, selfish, betraying their closest ones just to survive." At that moment, Arata hears Kanthi attacking Gensher and realizes the warden is right. Kanthi says, "I'm not your brother. Don't say that word again." Arata remembers the friend who betrayed him at school and understands. People are like that. Betrayal. No trust. Kanthi loses control. Gensher, unwillingly, strikes him hard and knocks him to the ground. Kanthi smiles and says, "You won. You get out. I'll die for you." Arata realizes he provoked him to make him win and survive. Everyone breaks down from the sight. The warden says to Gensher, "You're the winner, but I saw you kill him. That's murder and you must be punished," and ties him up again. But Arata snaps. He can't take it anymore. He yells at him, "You've been toying with them the whole time. You're a liar." He attacks the pipes and tries to break Gensher's restraints. He grabs the sword and tries to activate it, but it doesn't respond. He uses it like a normal sword, slashing at the pipes, but one of them strikes him, wraps around him, slams him into the walls. Still, he holds on tight. At the same time, Kanagi is aboard a ship heading to the prison where Arata is. He wants to see him. Arata is very weak, and he sees Katuha worried about him. He pleads with the sword to activate. This time, it responds. A massive force bursts out, covering the whole island. Kanagi sees it from afar. Arata is enveloped in a powerful magical shield that blocks all the warden's attacks. The walls crack, the ground explodes, and the warden emerges from the earth, his body mangled, with a black sword stuck inside him. Arata grabs the sword and sees the warden's memories. He learns the warden was betrayed by his closest friend, who trained with him and threw him into a horrifying place full of lava, threw in the sword too. A black mist formed, turning the sword dark, and the whole island was poisoned by hatred and anger. When Arata understood the story, he felt his heart break. He felt sorry for the warden. The prisoners shouted, "Kill him! Kill him!" But Arata refused to do it. He decided to remove the sword from his body, which was nearly impossible. But as one of the show, he was able to pull it out and break the dark seal inside it. The sword returned to its original color. The warden thanked him, and his soul entered Arata's sword and told him, "I'll always be with you and serve you," and asked him to restore the island to what it was. Indeed, Arata used the sword's power to create a storm of light that changed the island's form and purified it. He broke the chains of all the prisoners and they escaped together. But they got scared when they learned that Kanagi had arrived at the island. By chance, they found a small boat on the shore, boarded it, and headed toward the capital to free the princess. As for Arata in the human world, he starts acting very strangely. He tries to adapt to his new world, and at the same time, acts like his true self. His family is very confused by his behavior. They go along with him because the doctor said he had memory loss, since what he says and talks about isn't normal. They play along while being very worried about him, afraid he might lose his mind or never go back to how he was. His sister suspects he got into this state because of bullying at school, but his mother doesn't believe her. And as soon as Arata comes down, he says, "Good morning, I want to go hunting." His parents are shocked, but his dad says, "Hunting is great. Remind me to go with you. Just don't go alone." Then he looks at his wife and says, "At this rate, wait, we need to keep him out of school for a year or something, so he doesn't embarrass us or cause trouble. His mom agrees. We return to the magical world and see Kanagi burdened, unable to believe what happened on the island, because he learned that Tsu, the prison warden, submitted to Erita, and they're going to free Hayagami and return to the princess. Meanwhile, Erita, Katuha, Kanthi, and his brother finally arrive at the island after their ship was destroyed, barely surviving. Kanthi and Gensher are exhausted. They sit on the sand like corpses. Katuha fans them, and Erita opens a map and asks Kanthi to pinpoint their exact location. Kanthi tells him where they are and points to the location of the capital. Erita realizes it's very far, and the bigger problem is that they'll have to cross Kanagi's land. He learns from their conversation that Kanagi is considered the king of flames and has his own kingdom, and that each show rules over a kingdom under him. In the middle of their talk, Erita notices smoke and fire and says, "There shouldn't be anyone here. This is the closest island to the prison. I doubt anyone lives near it." He suspects it might be Kanagi, but when they go to check and observe from a distance, they find that the people there are just ordinary folk. Gensher even recognizes one of them, someone from his village before he got imprisoned. He reassures them and tells them to come down and not to worry. The surprise is when Gensher sees his mother. He can't believe it and runs to hug her. Kanthi is happy for him, but deep down he feels sad, thinking his brother might leave him. Gensher's mom, once she finds out that Kanthi was the one who saved her son and looked after him all this time, thanks him a lot and says, "I don't know how to repay you for this." Erita talks to one of the villagers and asks him if there's a way to reach the capital. The man says, "I'm not sure there is, but we villagers were planning to head to the borderlands to escape the chaos that's about to come because of the princess's death." Erita asks him what kind of chaos he means, and the man tells him, "Soon the Shinsho will rule. There will be a war, and the strongest among them will become king. The war will bring destruction and chaos, and it's best to avoid it." He tells them to get ready because they'll all be migrating soon to the borderlands, and they need to hurry because the path opens only at a certain time. So they prepare themselves and head out. They reach a place with a waterfall. The water recedes and reveals a path, which is the road to the borderlands. But Erita refuses to go with them because that's not the road to the capital. Gensher says goodbye and wishes them a safe journey. Then he tells his brother Kanthi to get ready so they can cross the path, grabs his hand, and walks with him, but Kanthi suddenly stops and refuses to move. Gensher tries to understand what's going on, but at that moment, the water starts coming back. Their mom panics, afraid the path will close, so she grabs Gensher and runs back quickly. The waterfall returns to normal. Kanthi waves goodbye to Gensher and tells him to stay with their mother and never leave her. Gensher starts crying because it's the last time he'll see his brother. Kanthi, Erita, and Katuha are shocked by what Kanthi did. They ask him why, and he tells them that he was one of the gang that attacked Gensher's village and kidnapped him from his mother, and he can't bear to stay with him or his people. He tells them to leave too and find their own path. He'll find his. But Erita grabs him and says, "I'm not leaving you. You're one of my friends now, and I won't abandon you. Until we reach the capital and things are sorted out, don't let me catch you doing anything foolish. And that violent side of you, forget it completely." Kanthi is overjoyed deep down, but he hides it and continues walking with his new friends. They search for a path to the capital. But after walking for a long time, Erita gets very tired, so they stop to rest. Then, a huge monster appears, terrifying Erita. But Katuha and Kanthi reassure him, saying the monster isn't harmful at all and peaceful if left alone. But the monster looks angry and charges at them. They get scared and start running too. At that moment, a girl appears holding the monster's egg. Kanthi tells her, "Return that egg immediately before the monster eats us." She refuses and says, "No way. I fought hard to get it. I won't give it back." Kanthi gets angry and is about to forcefully take the egg from her. The monster sees them and chases Kanthi again, and this time it looks funny. His friends stop to watch and laugh. They ask the girl, "Why did you take the monster's egg?" She tells them her lady is expecting a baby, and the monster's egg is incredibly nutritious. If she eats it now, the baby will be born healthy. But while she's talking, the egg hatches. The girl starts crying. After all that effort, the egg hatched and it was all for nothing. While they're talking, they hear movement around them, and a man on a horse appears. He knows the girl, and Kanthi is behind him. They take Erita to the man's house. His name is Uhoki, because Erita had fainted from exhaustion. There, Uhoki's wife takes care of him because he has a high fever. When he wakes up, Kanthi tells him that Uhoki turns out to be one of the loyal show servants, and not just any show, he serves Kanagi directly. Arata's true identity must not be revealed to him, or it'll be a disaster. Uhoki turns out to be a kind man who helps Erita and sits to talk with him for a while. Meanwhile, Kanagi hears disastrous news. Most of his followers have died. There's barely anyone left around him. He finds someone taking his last last breath and tries to get any information from him. The man only says one word, Akashi. Kanagi's mind spirals. He suspects Akashi did this to his followers because he wants to seize power. He starts thinking about what to do and decides he must go to Uhoki's village, his loyal servant, before something happens to him. But Akashi had already gone ahead and reached Uhoki's village, where he tells him the truth about Kanagi, that he's the one who killed the princess, and offers Uhoki to leave Kanagi's service and serve him instead. But Uhoki turns out to be extremely loyal to Kanagi. He tells him, I don't believe any of this, and even if Kanagi is responsible for everything, in the end, I swore my loyalty to him, and I'll never betray him because that's not who I am. I'll face the consequences with him. Akashi gets very frustrated and tries again to convince him to serve him instead, but Uhoki stands by his word and refuses to betray Kanagi. At that point, Akashi traps both Uhoki and his wife. He surrounds his wife with sharp objects that could kill her with just one move. He threatens him and says, I know your wife is expecting a baby now, but if you refuse to serve me, your wife and child will die. That's when Uhoki realizes he has no choice. Akashi came to make him submit by force or by threat. So he asks him one last question, why are you doing all this? Akashi replies, I plan to become king. I've already made 6 servants like you submit to me. Arata is watching everything from behind the curtain, feeling like he must intervene. Carefully, he starts trying to draw his sword. When Uhoki senses him, he quickly tells Akashi that he agrees to submit, but only if he doesn't harm his wife, child, village, or guests. Akashi agrees. At that moment, Uhoki draws his sword and places his soul into it. The soul then transfers to Akashi's sword and becomes bound to serve him, just like what happened with the prison warden who chose to serve Arata and entered his sword. But Akashi doesn't keep his word. As soon as he gets his 7th servant, he kills Vio, Uhoki's wife. Arata hears her scream from behind the curtain, and he cuts through it and rushes out to confront Akashi. But that's when Kanagi arrives. When he sees Vio dead, he realizes he came too late. He mourns for his loyal friend and his wife, and he becomes furious with Akashi. He asks him, why did you do this? Akashi calmly replies, for the throne. Isn't this what we're supposed to fight over? The strongest among us should rule. That's exactly what I'm doing. Kanagi loses it. He starts fighting with Akashi. Both are extremely powerful. No one can handle them, and they can't overpower each other either. Every strike is blocked. Kanagi stands burning with rage. Akashi provokes him, reminding him of Umis, the woman he loved, saying, Umis loved you deeply, but you were the reason she died. Kanagi gets enraged, yells, and lashes out with wild attacks. Akashi shows him the 7 servants he stole from him and tells him, the battle ended a long time ago. What you're doing now is meaningless. All that's left is for me to take your sword's power and add it to mine. At that moment, Kanagi remembers himself as a child. Akashi was older than him, like a big brother, training him in battle. He's deeply moved and asks Akashi, why did you do this? Akashi looks at him and says, you're the one who started it. You betrayed us first. You have to face the consequences. He keeps attacking and tells him, I'm not planning to kill you, just beat you down until you submit to me and surrender. But Arata steps in and stops Akashi, saying, you're cruel and unjust. How could you hurt the people close to you and even kill innocent ones? Akashi looks at him coldly and says, soon you'll become just like me. I'm sure of it. You have the throne in mind and you want to rule too. Then he looks at Kanagi and says, my time here is up, but I'll return soon. Before leaving, he takes the power from Kanagi's sword. All that's left is to make Kanagi submit, but he enjoys seeing him weak and humiliated for a while. Then, in a flash, he disappears. The young girl who worked for Uhoki comes to Kanagi and begs him to bring her master back. But Kanagi snaps at her, saying, Uhoki can't return. Once someone submits, they can never come back. They're trapped forever like the dead. He clearly looks heartbroken. Arata goes to scold him and says, you have the nerve to be sad and depressed after everything you did? You don't want to face the consequences after killing the princess and causing the uprising? What did you expect would happen? Kanagi responds coldly, pushes Arata's hand away, and says, I did all this because I had a goal, not because of the uprising or the throne. Then he leaves. Arata also falls into a state of depression, wandering aimlessly, not knowing where he's going. Kanthi catches up to him and reminds him that they have a mission, to reach the capital and for him to take the throne and become king. But Arata gets angry and says, I'm not becoming a king and I'm not ruling. This isn't my place. At the same time, Arata in the human world is living happily. happily. By coincidence, he looks out the window and sees a boy watching his house. It's Tsurujo. As soon as he spots Erita, he runs away, embarrassed. Erita chases after him and asks, "Who are you?" Tsurujo says, "It's normal, you're a copy of me now, but I don't want anything," and he returns Erita's game to him, looking really sad, then walks away. Meanwhile, Erita in the magical world is sitting, depressed and upset with himself, because once again, he couldn't face what happened. He had a chance to act, but he was afraid and weak. Kanthi tries to help him and provokes him with harsh words to make him angry and push him to fight back. He tells him all sorts of things, calling him weak, saying no one will ever love him or acknowledge him. It's the same exact phrase he once heard from Kato, the classmate who hated him back at school, before he came to this world. That phrase really gets to him. It makes him stand up and say, "I'm not a coward. I'll live up to my word and my promise to the princess. I'll fight to take the throne and save the world." He raises his sword to the sky and says the magic word. At that moment, his sword shines with a yellow light across the entire island. Kanagi sees it from a very far distance. Erita starts regaining hope bit by bit. He goes and tells the young girl that he will bring Ohoki back once he saves the world, and when the princess's spirit returns, maybe she'll help bring him back. The girl thanks him and wishes him success in his mission and to save the world. As for Erita in the human world, he immediately decides to go to school and see with his own eyes how the real Erita is living and what he's doing. Maybe he'll find answers to all the questions exploding in his head. There, he meets a strange boy named Kato, who from the very first second clearly doesn't like him and bullies him at every opportunity he gets. But Erita doesn't understand anything that's happening because, simply, this isn't his world at all. Everything around him is new. The strangest part is that he sees a picture of himself and Kato together as if they were friends, so he decides to talk to him and try to learn more, especially since they believe he has memory loss and he's desperate for any clue that might bring him back to his real identity. But Kato reacts aggressively and arrogantly, treating Erita like an enemy. At that moment, Arata's mother arrives, pulls him away, and tells him he has to go speak to the principal about his condition. He goes with her, and she explains to the principal that the boy's situation is very difficult. He lost his memory and is acting strangely. She asks him to treat Erita specially until he recovers and returns to normal. The principal understands and wishes him a full recovery, then lets him go. After that, Erita begins exploring the school to see it with his own eyes and tries to connect the events. But the surprise comes when Kato's friends approach him and tell him that Kato wants to see him on the rooftop. He goes with them with good intentions, but as soon as he sees Kato, he knows something's off. The look in Kato's eyes says he's up to no good. Kato confronts him and says, "Are you pretending or what? Pretty sure you're faking this. There's no such thing as memory loss." But Erita looks at him, completely uninterested and unfazed, his focus only on the view from the rooftop, mesmerized by the new world, the buildings, and the people. That made them even more irritated, until Kato decided to punch him. But Erita grabs his hand and stops him instantly, then says in a loud, defiant voice, "There's no way you people are real friends of the original Erita, and I won't let you disrespect him again." He leaves with total calm, leaving everyone stunned at how his personality changed 180 degrees. At the same time, in the magical world, the real Erita is walking with Katuha and Kanthi. Suddenly, Katuha stumbles and twists her ankle. She can't walk at all. Erita decides to support her, and Kanthi helps until they get her to a comfortable spot. All the while, Kanagi is watching them from afar. Kanthi goes to search for healing herbs to help Katuha, since her healing magic isn't working. Erita also goes out to help with the search. Suddenly, the necklace he's wearing lights up and opens a new portal. He focuses on it, reaches out, and is able to connect with Erita in the human world. They begin talking to each other, each one telling the other what happened to him. Then the Erita in the magical world asks the other Erita about his feelings toward Katuha. But the Erita in the human world quickly answers, saying she's like a little sister to him and they grew up together. He tells him to take good care of her until he returns. But the Erita in the magical world looks upset, trying to hide his emotions, because it seems he's starting to like Katuha for real, but he can't admit it, not even to himself. At that moment, Kanthi finds the herbs, but they're growing over a strange grave. Without thinking much, he takes them, excited that he can finally help Katuha. But flames start surrounding him. He gets completely trapped, and no one can reach him. At that same moment, the magical world Erita is still talking to himself, recounting what happened when he met the strange boy named Kato, who doesn't seem to like people or have a single ounce of friendship in his heart. But he managed to stand up to him and wonders if there really was a friendship between them, because the pictures say one thing and he feels something else. But before they can continue talking, the portal closes suddenly and they have to say goodbye quickly. The magical world Erita heads back to check on Katuha since he talked for too long. But he's surprised when Kanagi sneaks up behind him, restrains restrains him and says, "Hand over the power of your sword. It's the only hope I have to get rid of Akashi." But Arata refuses to submit or give up his sword's power and tells him that'll never happen. Kanagi says, "If you give me the sword, I'll kill you without pain. It'll be a quick, easy death, for all our sake." Still, Arata insists on refusing and doesn't change his mind. Suddenly, flames erupt and surround them all, but the fire doesn't harm Kanagi because he's the flame show. He's still one of the show even after his sword was taken. He threatens Arata, saying the fire will burn him and the entire place unless he hands over the sword. Arata can't figure out what to do, but Katuha senses what's happening and runs to him, even though she's injured, begging Kanagi not to hurt Arata. But the fire surrounds her too, and she becomes very afraid. At that moment, Kanagi remembers a scene of his beloved trapped in fire. He stands frozen, unable to move. Kanthi also arrives at the same time and sees Katuha surrounded by flames. But Arata decides not to freeze like a statue. He must act. He walks into the fire and sits next to Katuha, saying, "Then let the fire burn us both." Kanagi sees this and breaks down. He jumps into the fire and saves them both. He remembers when he was a child and his father brought him 2 servants, saying they would become the palace aides. Those 2 were Akashi and Umis, the girl he loved. He remembers Akashi, whom he treated like an older brother, training him, and Umis encouraging him, saying he had to train hard to protect the ones he loved when he grew up. But years passed, they grew up, and then came betrayal in the palace. The people turned against them, and he, Umis, and Akashi had to flee. They reached a lift that could only fit 2 people, and the only one who knew that was Akashi. He let them get inside and stayed behind to fight off the pursuers and slow them down. He asked Kanagi one last favor, to take care of Umis. Kanagi activated the lift, and he and Umis escaped. But things worsened. They had no place to go. They kept walking until they were exhausted and reached Uhoki's village, where Uhoki saved them. But Kanagi became very sick and developed a high fever. He needed certain herbs to recover. Umis became worried and decided to go look for the herbs herself, even though they warned her that the land she'd go to was dangerously volatile. Suddenly, the ground ignited, and her life was at risk, but she didn't care. She went anyway and didn't come back. When Kanagi found out, he chased after her despite his illness. He saw her trapped in the fire, tried to save her, but the flames kept him away and killed her in an instant. He was devastated and tried to speak to the land. He begged to sacrifice his life in exchange for bringing Umis back. That's when the Hamura sword appeared to him, responsible for the fire in the land. It chose him as its show. Since then, Kanagi became one of the show. He tells Arata everything and says he needs his power to get his Hamura sword back from Akashi, because to him, Hamura is Umis. Arata offers to go with him and change the world together. Kanagi is deeply moved by his words and agrees. Meanwhile, in the capital, the princess is still heavily shielded and hasn't died. A group is gathered around her, agreeing on her death. They say that eventually the princess will die, but with Arata holding the ruling sword, everything could change. He might return power to the princess, and that would be a disaster because everything they've done would go to waste. They must stop Arata no matter what. As for Arata, he's training with Kanthi. Both of them are practicing combat, but Arata's fighting skills are very weak. Kanthi is doing his best to improve them. Meanwhile, Kanagi is sitting on the ground like a king waiting to be served, constantly asking them, "Where's the food? I'm hungry." Kanthi gets really annoyed and tells him, "If you're going to stay with us, then you need to help out and take care of yourself. We're not your servants." Kanagi replies calmly, "I didn't even want to come. Arata insisted because he needs me." Kanthi looks at Arata and says, "Did you really have to invite him to come with us?" Arata responds, "I'm already starting to regret some decisions, but we have no other choice now. We're stuck with him." Then he turns to Kanagi and tells him to be patient, that Katuha is bringing the food. Just then, Katuha arrives and says the food is ready. Kanagi says, "Bring the food to me." So Kanthi hands the food to Arata and tells him, "Since you invited him, you deal with him. Go serve him." Arata stores his sword inside his hand so he can carry the food, but Kanagi stares at the sword with a piercing gaze, like his eyes could pop out. Back in the human world, Kato returns home, throws his bag on the bed, and starts smashing everything in his room, remembering the blow Arata gave him earlier on the rooftop. By accident, a photo of him with Arata as children falls to the floor. He stomps on it in anger. Meanwhile, Arata returns home. His mother excitedly rushes to him and asks how school went. He says, "Nothing special happened," and that's it. She feels disappointed and returns to her chores. Arata goes upstairs, and his sister stops him on the stairs. She tells him to treat their mother better. She's been worried about him all day, and all he gave her were a few words. She also tells him he needs to get used to calling her mom instead of speaking to her formally. He feels guilty. His heart aches for his mother, but he's not used to having a family, especially a mother. He goes to his room and thinks about everything that happened at school. At that moment, he spots Tsurujo passing under his window, standing and staring like usual. When he sees Erita, he runs. Erita goes after him and asks, "Who are you? Why do you always run when you see me?" Tsurujo tells him, "I know you heard me that day when I talked badly about you, but I didn't mean it. If I had said you were my friend, Kato and his gang would have targeted me. I know I'm weak, and I'm sorry." He starts crying. Erita feels sorry for him and says, "It's okay. I forgive you. Honestly, I don't remember what you did, but I still forgive you. What matters now is, do you know where Kato lives?" As for Kato, he storms out of his house angrily, but his father stops him and yells at him about the state he's in, failing, struggling, and headed for a future of failure. But Kato, being rude, talks back badly. His father slaps him and throws him out, saying, "Your attitude is the reason your mother left." That word hits him hard and only deepens his hatred for his father. Back in the magical world, Erita and Kanagi are walking together. As they enter a certain area, it starts raining. Kanagi tells them, "We're now in the region of Uro, the show who controls water." Erita asks more about the show and wants to learn about them. Kanagi says, "Each of the show controls a certain element, like me with flame. Most show don't know much about each other. The only time we meet is during the ritual, and that's it. Especially the sixth grade show, the strongest show in the world. No one knows anything about them, not even what they look like. They're the same group that surrounds the princess." Back in the human world, in Arata's house, his sister tells their mother that Erita is missing. He's not in his room. His mother panics for her son. Meanwhile, Erita is with Tsurujo, and they go to Kato's house, but don't find him. They search places where he usually hangs out. Kato, while wandering around, sees his schoolmates talking badly about him after the rooftop fight. They mock him and bully him. Erita shows up, thinking it's a fight, and tries to defend Kato. But Kato's friends weren't planning on fighting. Once they're bored, they walk away. Kato gets angry at Erita for making him look weak and says, "I didn't ask for your help. Why are you always like this? Just like when we were kids. I hate you." At that moment, Kato's mother arrives. When she sees Erita, she's clearly terrified. She slaps him out of fear and then immediately apologizes, asking him not to leave the house without permission while he's still unwell. Erita feels terrible and apologizes, calling her mom as she wanted. Kato walks away, out of his mind, punching walls and hurting himself. He remembers when he was a child and joined a running race with Erita. That's where their conflict began. But he refuses to recall the details because it hurts him too much. Meanwhile, in the magical world, a strange man is performing a bizarre ritual in the Kando forest after the sixth grade show learned the truth about Erita and what happened in the forest. He starts chanting strange words to open a portal to the other world. He succeeds, and suddenly, his soul rises, and across from him appears Kato's soul. The two of them switch worlds, just like what happened with Erita. Kato drops into the magical world inside the forest, confused and lost. When he comes out, the sixth grade show are waiting for him. They explain everything to him. He learns that the real Erita is in this world. They tell him they want him to become one of the show and kill Erita himself, because no one can defeat Erita except someone who hates him. His feelings of hatred are what brought him here and caused the soul switch. To become one of the show, they give him one of the most powerful swords, Orochi, an evil sword born from hatred and rage. The moment the sword sees Kato, it chooses him. They perform the ritual to make Kato one of the show, and the ritual succeeds. Kato's mission becomes, kill Erita. And the next day, Erita doesn't feel anything strange happening, except suddenly a weird sting hits his hand where the sword was. The sting worries him at first, but he ignores it, until suddenly Kato appears in front of him. Kato's appearance shocks him and makes him ask a lot of questions. When, how, and where, Kato draws his sword, and as soon as Kanagi sees him, he and Erita realize that Kato has become one of the show. They are even more shocked and ask him how that happened, but Kato doesn't answer their questions and tells Erita some very harsh words, including that he must be his servant for life, that he is a follower, and that the sword he now holds will kill him and show everyone his true self. These words upset Erita a lot and make him lose control. His emotions take over him, and because of that, the sword transforms and black smoke starts coming out of it, attacking Kato. Kanagi warns them and tells them what's happening is very dangerous. It could turn Erita into a monster and someone needs to stop him. Kotoha gets really worried about Erita and tries to bring him back to his senses, but the black smoke affects her. She does manage to bring him back to consciousness, but then she falls to the ground and can't get up. Kenti gets very worried about her, and Erita stands there in shock, throwing the sword from his hand. Meanwhile, Kato is approached by the 6 elders behind him, who ask him to stop what he's doing, because they didn't expect what came out of Arata's sword, so he listens to them and goes with them to their ship. When Kanagi sees the shape of the ship, he realizes they're the High Show, and when he notices that Arata's sword has fallen, he quickly grabs it and steals it from Arata, who is still in shock. Kanti tries to stop Kanagi and tells him to return the sword, but Kanagi says Arata is the one who threw away his sword and abandoned it. He then runs off before Kanti can catch him, and finally, Arata snaps out of his shock and checks on Kotoha. She's fine, but he's still worried about her, so he moves her to a safe place away from the rain. At that moment, she wakes up and asks him who Kato is and why they were talking as if they were from another world. When he doesn't reply, she believes everything she had been denying before and realizes that he really isn't the real Arata she knew in her childhood. Meanwhile, Kanti finally manages to find where Kanagi is, so he picks up a stick from the ground and tries to walk very quietly so Kanagi doesn't notice him, just enough to strike him and take the sword and run. But Kanagi hears his footsteps and realizes it's Kanti, so he says to him not to worry and that he'll return the sword. He's not going to keep it. Kanti is very surprised by Kanagi but believes him, so he goes back with him to Arata's place to return the sword, and Kanagi really does that and returns the sword but throws in a few mocking words at Arata and tosses the sword on the ground. The next day, Kanti and Arata train again in combat, but Arata clearly seems weaker and doesn't want to use his full power because he's afraid that the same state he was in while fighting Kato will come back. So Kanagi tells Kanti to sit aside because he's going to face Arata himself, and he starts saying very provoking words to him to annoy and anger him. Arata tries to keep control because he knows the purpose behind all those words. Kanagi, getting angry, throws Arata's sword very far and tells him if he can't get his sword back, then he's weak and won't continue with them. They'll leave him. Kanti is shocked by what they're doing, and when he goes to look at the sword, he finds it's fallen in a very far place and asks Arata, "What will you do?" Arata, without thinking, goes to where the sword is to bring it back, but he is surprised to find a wolf holding the sword in its mouth and refusing to return it, running away with it. Arata, without thinking, runs after his sword, and the wolf literally leads him all around the island, but he still doesn't give up. Meanwhile, Kato is still on the ship and remembers his problem with Arata. When he was a very fast athlete and had an important race, he thought the best person to compete against was his friend Arata because he didn't like weak competitions. Near the finish line, Arata decided to slow down so that Kato would win. Kato got very irritated and angry, thinking Arata was belittling him and not acknowledging him, so he slowed down and made him win by force, and from that moment they became enemies. As for Arata, he manages to get his sword back, which makes Kanagi very happy, and he tells him now he can rely on him. Then Arata goes to Kotoha and apologizes for everything that happened and promises her that he'll live up to the responsibility. And in order to continue and reach the capital, they must first meet Yuro, the water show. But Arata has a different opinion. He thinks they can't face Yuro without knowing information about him, because that wouldn't be in their favor and is very dangerous for them. So he suggests that they meet Yuro's servants first, and no one objects to his idea. They all go together first to a city where one of the servants lives, and to enter, they need a permit that they won't get unless they complete a few required tasks. Kanti gets into a fight with the man responsible for assigning tasks until suddenly a strange man named Suhi appears and tells the official, "I need them for something," and he takes Arata and the others with him. They pass through the city center. The city looks very beautiful and has many things, and Kanti keeps commenting and talking to Kanagi, and just as he's about to say his name, Kanagi grabs him and tells him, "Don't be stupid and reveal our identity, or I'll mark your face with something you'll never forget your whole life, and you know I'm crazy enough to do it." Kanti gets scared of him and stays completely silent along the way. Kotoha likes a few things and wishes she could buy them, but Suhi tells her, "This isn't the time for shopping. Later, you can shop and buy whatever you want with the money you'll earn from your work." They arrive at the site where they'll be working, and Suhi gives them non-stop work, asking them to move rocks. Kanti starts smashing and gets really tired just trying to move a stone, but he's surprised to see Kanagi carrying several bricks at once and moving them. So he yells at him and says, "Why are you the one not working?" Kanagi replies, "Who told you I'm free? I'm moving rocks too, idiot. No one told you to carry the big ones." As for Arata, he feels like this way he won't be able to reach Yuro's servant. He tries to think what to do and how he can benefit from Suhi, so he goes to think alone away from the work. At that moment, he sees Kotoha working, washing laundry with the other girls. He goes to talk to her, but she gets nervous and doesn't know how to speak to him since she learned he's not the Arata she knew from before. He's a stranger. So she speaks to him in a very formal way, considering he's one of the show. As for Kato, at that time he was still on the ship talking to one of the high show, who told him a bit about the system and said that the power of the Shinsho is called the Kami, and the princess is the one controlling it. When what happened did happen and they betrayed the princess, a part of the Kami was released, not all of it. Now they have a new problem. They show him some pictures of dead people, and among them is a picture of Akashi killing those people, and there's a new mission for Kato that the show are about to tell him about. And we go back to Arata, who after finishing work went out a bit into the city and by coincidence ran into Suhi. He goes to talk to him a little and asks if he knows anything about the show Yuro. Suhi tells him, Yuro is one of the best show I've ever known, a good person who strives for perfection in everything. Because of him, our city was built and became known as the ideal city in everything. After that, they return to work, and there they see a small boy working with them moving rocks. The supervisor yells at him and slaps him because the boy, Rika, broke the expensive cart used to move the rocks. But Rika objects and says, I didn't do that, and Kanti and Erida intervene and push the crazy supervisor away from the boy and defend him, but it's no use. The supervisor insists on his opinion and even fires Rika. Rika begs him to change his mind because he needs the money, but the supervisor refuses. Kanti gets angry and goes to attack the supervisor and hit him, but Suhi comes and says, fighting is forbidden here, and dismisses all of them and ends the day. As they leave, they talk to Rika and ask him about his family, but they are all dead and he has no one, and he's treated horribly here in the city. Erida gets irritated and loudly says, this city isn't ideal or anything, and Suhi hears that by coincidence and stands there eavesdropping on them. Kanti offers Rika to come with them and not worry about money. At that moment, Kanagi notices Suhi is eavesdropping on them, so he comes out to speak with him, and the two already know each other from before. Kanagi asks him about Heiko, Yuro's servant. He replies, Heiko is very curious about Erida and wants to meet him. Kanti prepares dinner, and they all sit together to eat. Rika thanks them and says, I haven't felt this way in a long time, and they all have a great time together. As for Kato, something goes wrong with his ship, and when he goes out to see what's happening, he finds that Akashi is the one who caused the problem. So he draws his sword and descends from the ship and offers Akashi that they form a team. Their enemies, Kanagi and Erida, are close to each other, but Akashi acts superior and despises him a lot, seeing him as a weak, useless person and refuses to form a team with him. But Kato insists, so Akashi replies, you'll never be able to defeat Erida because you're controlled by your ghost. I have to rid you of it, and suddenly, he plucks out one of Kato's eyes without mercy. Erida finishes his work and goes to Suhi to ask for permission to leave, but Suhi tells him that name is the alias. The real name is Heiko, servant of the show Yuro. So Erida draws his sword and activates his defense barrier. When Heiko sees the barrier, he's sure of Arata's power and makes him a request to fight the show Yuro and return him to the old self they used to know. In return, he will become his subordinate. The next day, they head straight to the island where the show Yuro is, and we see Yuro talking to his mother, who is inside a huge unmoving water orb. He tells her that he's very close to taking power and becoming king, and that he'll make her happy. As for Erida and his friends, they reach Yuro's palace but refuse to enter without a plan. So they move away from the palace and go wait at a distance, while Kanagi and Kanti scout around the palace to gather information about the entrances and exits. Kotoha goes to talk to Erida and asks him if his world is that bad. Surely he has people who love him and are worried about him, which is why he wants to return. Until that happens, she'll stay with him, but from a distance, so she doesn't get attached to someone who will later go back to his world. She leaves without hearing his reply to what she said, but shortly after, he hears her voice and runs to see what happened. He's shocked to see a giant water orb holding her. When he gets closer, the orb grows until it swallows her. Kotoha loses consciousness and can't move, and the orb transports her to another place. He immediately guesses that the one who did this is Yuro and she must be in his palace. And he turns out to be right. Once he arrives at the palace with Kanti and Kanagi, he sees Kotoha trapped inside another orb filled with air. She's awake and okay, but the orb begins filling with water, and if he doesn't save her, she'll die. Then Yuro appears and tells him if he wants to free her, one of them has to submit to the other, either defeat him or get defeated. There's no other option. Erita agrees to Yuro's terms and draws his sword, but with incredible speed, Yuro creates a waterfall that strikes Erita. If Erita hadn't formed his shield at the last moment, he would have lost. All of Yuro's followers gather, cheering for Erita, hoping he will bring Yuro back to his old self and clear all the toxic thoughts from his mind. Meanwhile, we see Akashi and Kato. After everything that happened, they're not shocked. Kato just gets up like nothing happened and keeps begging Akashi to help him defeat Erita, telling him that if Erita loses, he's willing to give him his other eye. Akashi likes what he hears and rewards him by giving him back his eye. Suddenly, Akashi removes one of his own eyes and gives it to Kato in place of the one he took earlier. Meanwhile, Erita is still deep in battle with Yuro. Things keep getting more difficult and tense until suddenly, Yuro casts a spell inside the water orb that traps Erita, making him unconscious. But it doesn't end there. Suddenly, Kato appears and jumps down from the ship like a hawk, lands on the ground, draws his Orshi sword, and prepares to fight Erita. But by then, Yuro has already enchanted Erita and put him into a deep sleep. When Kato sees what's happening, he asks Yuro what he did to Erita. Yuro replies that Erita is asleep now and won't wake up, and in this way, he'll make him submit while he's unaware. Kato gets angry and says, defeating Erida is supposed to be mine. I won't let you take that chance from me. In a moment, everything flips. The battle changes and becomes between Yuro and Kato. Kato keeps attacking Yuro, but Yuro, for a moment, doesn't even care about Kato, so he dives with Erida into the magical water and disappears. Kato follows them. At that point, Yuro tries to infiltrate Erida's mind by showing him a few scenes with his mother, and when he listens to her and obeys, he can control him and make him submit. But that doesn't happen. Every command Yuro gives isn't executed, because Erida doesn't understand his mother's strange words. Yuro fails to control Erida's mind, but Erida remains trapped inside it. Then suddenly, he hears a voice that isn't strange to him. When he focuses, he finds it's Kotoha's voice calling him and asking him not to give up. He starts to understand the game, so he controls his sword, and the light that comes from the sword is what saves him from Yuro's control. It turns the water orb into an orb of light and saves Kotoha with him. When Yuro tries to attack his sword, no magic comes out, because he has lost the will to fight. At that moment, the water orb that held his mother bursts. He collapses and goes to apologize to her and remembers how she was harsh on him and wanted him to be perfect. No matter what he did, she wasn't satisfied. Even after he became strong and joined the show, she wasn't pleased and died before accepting him. But one of his followers comes and corrects his information, telling him that his mother wasn't harsh or cruel. She loved him very much and considered him her treasure. But what she did was out of fear for him. All she thought about was what would happen to him if she died, especially since he was a sensitive child deeply attached to her. He shows him proof of what he's saying, things his mother kept that he made when he was young. She always belittled them to keep his focus on combat and strength. Yuro, after hearing all that, breaks down crying and apologizes to all his followers and Erida. He tells them, I was doing all this for my mother, but now I'm content with my life and don't want anything else. And in the middle of this emotional moment, Kato enters the scene and interrupts them, saying, I'm here and I won't let you enjoy anything you're doing, then draws his sword and prepares for the final blow. So Erida steps out to talk to him, and Kato says, admit you're afraid of my bravery and can't face me. But Erida replies, that's impossible. No one here is afraid of you or gives you any value. Kato yells at him, fight me! Turn into a monster now, so you can handle facing me and let the battle ignite. Erida refuses and says, there must be another way to change that black heart of yours. I don't want to kill you. Kato responds, who told you I want to change? I enjoy power and playing this role, and what I enjoy even more is your death. And then draws the Orshi sword. But the shock is that the sword evolves and becomes stronger. Everyone is stunned, and in the middle of the shock, Erida realizes that there's no other choice but to fight. He draws his sword too and prepares for battle. In a flash, Kato attacks Erida, and boom, a massive explosion occurs and sets the battle ablaze. But instead of facing him, Erida runs and escapes in fear. He needs time to think before making any move. Everyone stands watching. The six elders see it as a battle between light and darkness. There's no room for a third party. Even when Kotoha asks Kanagi for help, Kanagi refuses and tells her, this is Erada's battle. No one is allowed to interfere. Kato chases Erida and trips him, making him fall to the ground and lick the floor. He chains his legs. Erida finally decides to face him and defend himself, but the power of darkness is stronger. It spreads everywhere more than the light. The Orshi beast appears, and things go down a dangerous path. Kotoha senses the danger and starts cheering for Erida, but it's just one sentence that truly affects him. We all believe in you. Fight for us and for the princess. That sentence literally flips everything. It gives Erida power and makes him stand up to fight. He actually manages to defend himself and holds on until both of their powers become equal. But the hatred and rage inside Kato are fueling him, feeding his strength. That makes his power grow even more whenever he wants and feeds the Orshi sword, which releases a monster. If it swallows Erida, the battle will end. So Yuro senses the danger and responsibility and decides to sacrifice himself. He tells everyone, after bidding them farewell, that he has chosen to submit to the show Erida. When Erida hears him, he shouts, don't do that, but Yuro has already made his decision. His soul enters Erida's sword. At that moment, Kanagi tells Erida, live up to the responsibility and don't fail Yuro after he sacrificed himself for you. And from that sentence, Erida's power causes another explosion, even stronger than the first first one, so powerful it destroys the whole palace. Everyone is thrown in opposite directions. They barely wake up and start looking for each other. When they go to check on Erita, they find him still standing in his place, completely unharmed, in front of Kato. They feel somewhat relieved but stay tense, unsure of what's coming next. This time, Kato tries to boost his power in a different way, by drawing strength from Akashi's eye. Meanwhile, Arata's confidence in himself grows immensely. As soon as Kato tries to attack and gets close, a very powerful light blinds everyone, purifies the ground from hatred and rage. It weakens Kato and prevents him from controlling his power. He surrenders, and Erita succeeds in defeating Kato with a light called the Light of Truth and Justice. Kato quickly retreats to the show's ship. Kotoha is overjoyed and runs to Erita, unable to believe he won. He then goes to meet Yuro's followers and apologizes for what happened. But they surprise him by saying they want to submit to him and join Yuro. He agrees at that point, and his power becomes unmatched. He goes on to contact the Erita in the human world and tells him everything that happened and warns him about the show who is in disguise and surely close to him with a target set. As for Kanagi, he prepares himself, because the next battle is his, and it's with Akashi, to reclaim his sword, his strength, and return to his former self.